Hi,
Hey, what's up?
I'm thinking Jakey's.
Ooh,
Ooh.
yeah.
Derek, we're starting.
Oh, hey.
Wow,
How are y'all?
Oh,
what
hey.
you should take that all the way home.
Take you home.
Ooh.
I feel like I'm in my head, but I'll take you both home and take you out to dinner and give you a steak, and I'm not talking about the meat.
Please take us to
Well, my
Jakey's.
meat.
I don't want steak. I want
Can we
sushi,
go to
please.
Jakey's?
Fine,
I
I'll
don't
put my
know
peanut
what Jakey's
sushi.
is.
I don't know. I'm trying too hard for jokes.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. I'm just saying, yeah. So let's do our thing here.
Yeah,
So
this thing. Hi.
welcome to the M and N show.
Thank you.
I'm gonna do it this time.
Please do. I'm really bad at it today.
Welcome to the M and N show, where the M stands for
Uh, metric system.
and the N stands for Not Your Mama's Movie.
Not your mama's metric system.
Nope. It's not. So.
Nope. All right.
All right.
So,
So
what we're doing today, Noah?
we're interviewing our. This is a segment we are trying out for right now or whatever. We're planning on doing it more in the future. We're interviewing our good friend Deriq. Um, his artist name is Qired. Check him out. And yeah, that's what we're doing today.
Yes. Welcome, Derek.
Hello. Should we clarify the spelling?
Yeah, probably.
Why don't you tell
It is Qired. So Qired.
him? And
But
backwards, that spells Derek.
yes. So
Holy original.
it's so
Colin.
actually it's pretty original. It's pretty catchy. If you did my name backwards, it'd be Heyon, and I feel like that just doesn't have like the zing that Qired does. So I like it.
Hick Tim. His name would be Hick Tim.
Mitchell backwards is Lick Tim. All right.
No, Hick Tim. HCTIM. Hick Tim.
I was doing my whole name. Mitchell.
Okay.
All right. This is not
Okay.
my name.
Let me do it for you,
Who's
Mitch.
Mitchell?
It'd be Lechim.
Lick
Well, that's kind
Tim.
of nice.
Lick Tim. You guys know Tim? All right. I swear I'm not gay, but I keep staring into the skid, so here we are. Well, as Noah said, today we are interviewing Deriq. Deriq is one of my close friends, and I introduced him to Noah. So we're all the three best of buds, and I'll let Deriq actually introduce himself in terms of his music. So Deriq, tell the people about you.
Okay, so most of my music, like on my artist thing, music producer stuck in the mid-90s, I would say. A lot of influence from like Nine Inch Nails, video game music, specifically soundtracks from Nobuo Uematsu, like Final Fantasy music and stuff like that. With a bit of Bowie and other instrumental stuff thrown in.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So this will be different, of course, from our album discussion podcast, because we're not discussing an album. We're, of course, discussing Deriq and his discography. So for all those at home, how it's going to work is Noah and I each have 5 questions. Mine go more in detail in terms of his music career, and I think Noah's be more general, more about Deriq as a person himself. So we're just going to go back and forth and get to know this sexy beast we're lucky to call friend. So thank you so much for doing this.
No problem.
Noah, do you want to go first? Start off.
Yeah,
Say?
I was just gonna ask him this. So like, what exactly was I mean, I have to go too personal, but like, what was your upbringing in terms of like music and everything like that? And like, what exactly like brought you to today in terms of like you growing up and becoming a musician in your own right?
Are you talking about like general background or like
Yeah,
stuff
background
I
in
listen
music.
to and stuff? Okay, that's actually a pretty in-depth question. So my mom is from Texas and she moved up here with family and stuff. Had me when she was 19. And just to go into some woo-woo kind of origins, whenever my mom was still pregnant with me, she was living up in KC at the time.
Huh.
And she was at a church, and I was kicking to the music or whatever. And and it was like Southern gospel music, not that contemporary, you know, oh praise the Lord. There's that,
Yeah,
that hand
like
clapping
Southern
stuff.
gospel. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess I was kicking during the whole time, and the pastor said, "Oh, he's like John the Baptist. He's going to be either a preacher or a musician." So like that's something my mom just recently told me that I thought was pretty relevant. I'm like, "Ooh, okay." But in terms of that, she would always play me like that old kind of Southern gospel music whenever I was in the womb. But she also listened to a lot of like 80s stuff, and then when I was growing up, I would listen to a lot of rap. So maybe not like Notorious B.A.G., but I would listen to, a lot of Tupac and Warren G, a lot of that classic 90s G-funk. So that
Yeah.
has kind of a bearing on my music. But I also listen to a lot of like grunge and, like Nirvana and stuff. And then when my mom and dad split one of the times, my mom had a boyfriend who played a lot of Led Zeppelin and stuff. So, when I was like 8, 6 to 8 kind of range period, I would listen to a lot of that stuff. A lot of the stuff that I listened to didn't come up until later on, whenever I was actually starting to explore stuff myself. But I've always been like super drawn to music. That's always been my favorite part of like movies and video games. And I love listening to the radio. I used to sing Tina Turner and CCR when I was like super young. But once you hit middle school, you're like trying to express yourself more. So I just wanted to do music, and that's when I picked up guitar like age 12 or 13 and just kind of started teaching myself. So I didn't really like make stuff then, but I would just kind of fiddle around and try to learn how to play some basic Nirvana songs and whatnot.
Huh. Wow. So like were you ever into like vocal music, or were you strictly just about instrumental composition and figuring that
Both.
out?
I like
Both?
both. Yeah, I mean, I would write lyrics, but then I would just kind of fiddle around and make like instrumental pieces. And I never really married the two. They were pretty separate in mind because I never really thought of myself as a more vocal kind of artist.
Yeah.
That's been more of a recent development.
Huh.
I've actually wanted to do vocal stuff, but instrumental has always been my main thing because I've wanted to just compose, like pieces of music instead of
Yeah,
songs.
it's kind of interesting that you didn't really um, travel down the whole vocal path, because whenever I heard you shout out to both of y'all's songs, this is like one of their more Mitchell and y'all's collaborative piece, Headspace. When I heard that, it didn't really sound like you're like a new vocalist. It kind of just sounded like it sounded like you thought a lot about how your delivery would be and everything like that in that song specifically. And so it was kind of interesting to me that you haven't really. It didn't sound like you said you didn't really you haven't done that often.
Like I always used to sing to myself, but the first time I actually sang live was at the show that me and Mitch did for the Frank
Yeah,
Sonatas.
that's right.
That was my first ever like
Performance.
let's let it out,
Yeah.
Vocal performance.
Yeah.
And I've come out of my shell a lot of that, and I've just kind of improved it just because I wanted to. In terms of like my vocal delivery on that, I really like Frank Sinatra or like Michael Bublé. I love that kind of more, not operatic, but just I don't know. There's something so timeless and like heartfelt about it, and just sincere.
You know, and I did get that from your performance. But I also could see like I don't know, maybe this is unintentional, and it sounds like it probably was, but like I could also get a little bit of the Bowie influence.
Yeah, I mean,
in your
you
delivery.
like David Bowie. I like David Bowie. I
No,
mean,
like
he's up there. Yeah.
yeah, like Bowie's whole like I don't know. It's just something about your delivery sounded really a lot like Bowie in many respects, and it kind of had this like character to it rather than just someone who had not that much experience in terms of vocal performance. So it was really good. I did really enjoy it.
Thank you.
So
I think in terms of that, I've always, because like I like Singing in the Rain. That's one of my favorite musicals. I didn't really grow up watching a whole lot of musicals, but I like the more theatrical aspect, and I think that's what drew me to David Bowie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Rockadoodle. Have you ever seen Rockadoodle? That is
No.
a late 80s, I think, animated feature. It starts off like live action, and then the kid goes into like cartoon world, but not really. It's like blended seamlessly. But it's a lot of that like 1950s style, like doo-wop and music. And oh man, that stuff gets me. That's I used to watch that all the time when I was a kid. Or like the Goofy movie. Yeah. That's what I used to watch. Like, I like Michael Jackson. I like that. I like the David Bowie, the just more theatrical aspect of stuff. Because I don't know. I seem kind of reserved sometimes, but I like putting on a good show, at least for myself, because I've always, just grown up amusing my own self.
Yeah. Mitchell, by the way, I forgot you were even here.
That's nice to know, the M&N show. I was letting Deriq speak. I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, it's very nice of you.
What were you going to say?
I said that's very nice of you. I was just gonna say like, what were we gonna ask?
Well, I mean, just to end on what you were saying, Deriq and I individually release music, and we've been in a band, and we've done music a long time. So the song Headspace Noah mentioned is the most different of my songs, but it's most evident of we're very similar in our tastes and like I guess friendship, but we're very different in how we sing, just because I'm very methodical and have to hit every note a precise way, and just like it has to be like a really fluid river, like a really emotion. And I mean, Deriq's not necessarily about that. He definitely has the swagger of Sinatra and Bowie in his voice. Like,
Yeah, I just kind of write it
I
down.
don't want to say lounge music because I feel like that just paints like some shitty 40-year-old in a hotel bar doing his thing.
Hello, how are you?
There's just this, like it was hard to write around because I really liked that song. It's just like for some reason it wasn't sticking all the way. It's just because me and Deriq just sing so differently. So like I do admire that swagger he has, which he always claims to be so modest, but he didn't seem to be so modest there. Even though we're singing about burnout and depression, it came through. You're welcome. Check it out if you please. But on to my question, it seems. So, Deriq, as we were talking about earlier, you and I have now known each other about 2.5 years, and we met at a Halloween party, which is how we became friends and how you joined our then band, the Frank Sonatas. That it could have taken over the world, I say. But
the name was classic.
Y'all screwed it up.
But I mean, when we met, like he said he played bass, so I asked him to be in the band, and that was really it. Like I didn't need to know much about him, but like we've become great friends since then. But like nowadays, like he's very eclectic in his taste, but also his output because he does acoustic, he does rap, he does electronic, industrial, video game soundtrack scoring. Like he does it all. But at least from that point in general, like I didn't know this exact age you started playing guitar, like you just mentioned, but like it seemed compared to me when I was in school, I did choir, I did band, I did all the typical stuff someone does, or a lot of typical things people do in school. But it seemed like you didn't really have extensive background in that sense. So like your music always felt like it had this outsider edge to it. So like, and it definitely still feels like that knowing this now, but like my original question was, do you feel like that approach, like that kind of outsider approach makes your music better for you, or in terms of like comparing it to somebody else who makes similar music, or to someone who makes music like myself? Like, how do you
I
view it
mean,
from perspective?
I don't see it as better. I mean, it's just a different perspective, you know.
I
It's
mean,
just a different angle that I'm
yeah.
coming at, you know.
You personally, does that like outsider approach like make your music stronger in any way, or at least more fulfilling to you, if that makes any sense?
Oh, uh, hmm. I would think so. I mean, a part of that can get into philosophical stuff. Like, it doesn't everything that we do for ourselves, if we're proud of it, fulfill us more than anything else that somebody else does. I mean, I would say to a certain degree. I mean, whenever I'm like doing music, I'll listen to my own stuff and thoroughly enjoy it, because like I don't want to make something that I don't like listening to. If I like listening to it, somebody else will, maybe. I don't know. But I don't know. I didn't really given it much thought. I think it's just a different perspective. It just kind of gives it its own flavor. I mean, I haven't really had any like lessons or anything. I never paid for any lessons. I've done a lot of it just learning myself. So I think in terms of that, I feel like it's more unfiltered through technique and, knowledge that is built up over years. It's knowledge that I've built up over the years of my own accord, and not used other people's stuff to discover my own stuff. You know what I mean? So
And to sort of bounce off the unfiltered aspect, sometimes when I hear your music, I can kind of see, I know, not similarities, I guess, sonically, but like similarities in terms of that like unfiltered, outsider way of doing things. I can kind of draw similarities between that and like Tyler kind of has that nice raw, Tyler the Creator, like that
yeah.
nice raw quality in the production that, I don't know, it's just you can't really get from, you don't really get all the time.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like. I'm a fan of Tyler the Creator. I also like that he's not super serious all the time when it comes to his lyrics.
Yeah.
Where otherwise it'll sound not serious, but it may actually mean something else. But that kind of like raw production I really enjoy. It's, in terms of my stuff, and it may sound like conceited, I almost kind of come at it from a punk perspective, because like Nirvana is like top band. I don't listen to them a whole lot anymore because I don't want to like ruin the songs for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But just coming at that from being a fan of music and just wanting to create music, I come at it from more of a punk standpoint. Like, hey, I'm going to do this, and just I'm not going to let anybody else determine how I do it. And that's why I do a lot of my stuff either electronically, or I just kind of do it willy nilly and just kind of roll with it. So.
Nice.
Yeah. I can see that, honestly. I really do. Do you want me to ask another question?
Yeah, that seems fitting.
That seems fitting?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what would you say, like, what sort of like memories or like feelings sort of compel you the most to make the music you do? Like, what kind of feelings and everything like that compels you to make your music the most?
So when I first started not making music, but like writing lyrics, a lot of it was to deal with issues that I had with my father.
Yeah.
But when and I was at that point, I was just fiddling around my guitar, and like I played in a band in church, like I told Mitch earlier. But
It's
that
crazy
was
to
just
think about, to be honest.
yeah. He was kind of confused by that too. It was a different time in life. I was trying something new, but mainly all my friends were there. So
It was a different time. I was experimenting.
I mean, I enjoyed playing for the old folks at their the retirement home. I mean, that was super nice. But in terms of like memories and stuff, you have those normal negative things that inspire you to like express yourself, like breakups and whatnot. but I've been kind of thinking about this more lately. Just, I don't know, just it's almost like creating a soundtrack for my own life is what I do a lot of it. And I feel like in terms of my own life, life itself is like bittersweet. So like there's good moments and stuff. Like when I go on walks, I'll think of not necessarily tunes, but just kind of the emotion or just like what the moment holds. So I try to, like, I have one song called Courage. It's literally just a repeating, chord progression on piano that just builds up in speed over time. And I like the aspect that it starts off slow. That's one of my favorite things about music is that different notes can mean different things. They can represent the same moment, but from different perspectives. I really like adding context to music. So I'll have like one melody passage and just altering the tempo or adding one other note on top of that can completely change the feel of it. A lot of it, I just kind of go from intuition. And then later on, I'll apply like a title because I'm like, oh, this reminds me of that time in my life. Like I have pieces that I haven't even released or anything that remind me of my times in Wyoming when I was still going for my undergrad. There's a piece called See Sideways that is on Speculum. It's the last track on there that it thinks. Thanks. It reminds me of my mom because I just threw the ocean sounds that I have in there just willy-nilly. But then as I was working on it a bit more, my mom loves the ocean and this, I don't know, it's a piece that always reminds me of my mom now. So it depends because like the context that I make a song under at that time will not have the same bearing or it'll be expanded upon afterwards. I don't know if that answered the questions.
Yeah.
but
that makes sense. It kind of reminds me of your approach to music kind of reminds me of like painting almost, where you paint something and then you're like afterwards you're like, I want to name it this. And really even with like a representative work of art, people have named things just off the wall things, but it's because something personal to the artist. So I can kind of relate to that. I mean, because I've my other thing that I'm really experiencing, oil painting, I kind of do some of that too. So I can understand where you're coming from on that. So it's just like, you kind of get it's kind of an intuitive experience.
It's interesting that you say that because like before I started even like writing lyrics or like playing guitar, I was very visually art focused. Like I actually wanted to go to art school for a while.
Wow.
And I don't really draw or paint as much anymore, but it's something I kind of been wanting to get back into. But that's what I used to do. Because my father was actually a pretty good artist. Like he could have been a tattoo artist, but that's a whole other can of worms. But I don't know, because
so does it relate to painting in like any sort of like almost like synesthetic way? Like do you view it kind of like painting?
In terms of that, sort of, but it's more of like a 3D kind of spatial thing. So when I do a lot of my music, it's the emotions and where they're coming from, because I like to close my eyes and envision where certain sounds are coming from and how they stack up on other ones. And so dependent upon that, like even that, if you notice, you might notice it in some stuff, I'll kind of shift something elsewhere, or I'll bring something that almost sounds similar, but in a different 3D spatial area, because even that adds new context. It changes your perspective of the whole situation. So in terms of music, I guess it's a mix of like a visual or more of like a visual representation of where I'm hearing stimuli coming from my surroundings or from what I'm doing, entering in that kind of 3D headspace. I don't necessarily associate like colors or anything like that.
So it's more of like imagery.
Yeah, it's like oral imagery, I guess.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's how I like conceive of stuff. And especially as my stuff as of late, it's been kind of a bit more, I don't know, weird. I definitely there's a lot of repetition I've noticed in my music that I've tried to kind of cut out to a certain degree, but I think it's more representative of my mental state because I'll have thought processes that don't necessarily have the same context, but will have the same pattern in terms of cycling. So it's almost like a meditation thing. I'll have passages that go longer because I want people to be in a certain headspace when they're listening to that. No pun intended.
Yeah.
And then once I introduce something else, I want them to kind of go back and reflect on what that new element that I've added, how it changes what came before it, and what it represents now. Or how, I don't know, I like context is everything to me within my own stuff.
So, would you, well, I'm going to get to Mitchell and him asking a question, but I was going to say, just to add on to that, would you say you value probably the experience of a whole album as sort of a work in itself more than a song?
At least for my stuff.
Okay.
I do. I don't know. It depends on the artist because there are certain artists like Michael Jackson. I don't have the same context with, the whole album.
Yeah.
But it's that more pop focused single type of stuff. With my stuff, it's definitely, I'm always trying to tell a story, even if it's not one that's used in words or told in words. So a lot of my stuff, not prefer, but I think it would be helpful if people listen to it in totality instead of just like bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Because that's how I listen to music. I'll listen to an album throughout, and then whatever sticks out the most is what becomes my own singles from that album. And sometimes it's, most of the time it's not even like the main singles of an album and whatnot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see. I can see that though. Whenever I've listened to your stuff, it seems like you kind of like the idea of having the album as like a whole work in itself and have its own feel, stuff like that. So anyway, I was going to say, Mitchell, you want to
jump in there? Well, first of all, again, I'm trying not to cut off Deriq as much as possible.
Just let me know if I'm going too long.
No, you're good, man. This is great. I was going to say earlier, Deriq and Noah specifically make great art, so check them out sometime.
Should collaborate.
Who? Did you say me?
Everything. Yeah, you have great paintings.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, I've never seen any of your stuff. You should send me some pictures.
Oh, hell yeah, I will. I got my own art page. I haven't added anything recently, but yeah.
Is this on Instagram? Because I'll look for you now.
Yeah, it's nap_arts. So
okay.
Yeah. It's pretty. I focus mainly on oil painting, and yeah, that's sort of my thing.
Before we get to Mitchell's question, I just want to expound. My two favorite artists are Van Gogh and I'm not sure how to pronounce it because it's Polish. Zdzisław Beksiński. Do you know who it is?
What kind of art does he do?
He used to do a lot of photography, but he does think of like Geiger mixed with Dali. He paints a lot of like hellscapes and stuff, and he survived like World War II. He also
is he the
he was murdered in 2005 or 6.
Was he spell that for me because I think I actually know who you're talking about.
The first name is Zdisław
SLA.
It's either Beksiński or Beksiński. Yeah.
Beksiński.
Yeah.
Yes, I know who this is.
Yeah, him and Van Gogh. They're almost like polar opposites.
I love his art. Yeah, no, very much a surreal artist. I love surrealism. Yeah, no, but it's funny because I can actually see a little bit of that in your music. Whenever I've listened to it, I mean, I know I've talked about this song a lot, and I can't remember exactly the name of it, but it's that one really creepy song that you really put it. Man, I look like an idiot right now, but here, I'm gonna look
Hold
up.
on, I was about to look it up for you too.
Here, I'll look it up here 1 second. God, I love that song. Um,
Is it on the Weathered Veneer?
I think looking at your
Is it
albums.
Corpus Morpheus?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting one. That's a very personal one.
Say it again so that everybody can look it up.
Corpus dysmorphia.
Corpus Dysmorphia. It's an awesome song. I listened to it when I was in the car. I remember this. Which album was it? Remind me.
Weathered Veneer.
Weather from Near. Okay. Yeah, this is when I was like first starting to I was like, okay, I'm gonna check out Qired. This is before I even knew you. So
Yeah.
I only knew you literally by Qired. And I was like starting to listen to it, and I was like, I got to this song, and I was in the car and I had it turned all the way up, and it scared me. Like it literally scared me. I was like, dang, that was really good. That was a really good that was a really good production, like to actually like make me like creeped out. And it's like one of my like it's still to this I mean I admit I will have to listen to your work a little bit more because I'm not like as familiar as Mitchell.
Aficionado.
Yeah, but like as of now, that's still my favorite. And I can
That's a
see
sad
that.
song. That's a sad song.
It is a sad song, but I can see the influence of that. Like it feels like one of those paintings. If you were to look at one of his paintings, that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, this song is just like the audio representation of my disgust with my own body.
Jeez.
It's pretty much like literally corpus dysmorphia is just body dysmorphia under a more pretentious name.
You can feel it. You can feel like totally just like not comfortable at all. If you're trying to go for like the feeling of being very, very much uncomfortable and not comfortable in your own like surroundings and your own skin in that moment, yeah, I can. That's really. It was really good. It was really. If that's what you're going for, that's what you got.
Well, a lot of my stuff I don't set out with like a thing that I'm doing. It just kind of occurs naturally. I'll work on just like a beat, and then I'll just start fiddling around with like, notes and stuff that I add, and then it's a really long process before a song even gets a definitive title or like this reminds me of my own part of myself or whatever.
Wow.
So like that song initially started as, I don't know, let's just kind of make something. That's it.
Wow, that's really interesting because it sounds way more like you had an idea from the beginning.
Yeah, no, I just work from, we'll see how this plant grows. Like I'll plant a seed on the program or whatever, and we'll just see where it goes from there.
That's crazy.
Whenever I'm kind of feeling at the time, I guess.
All right, well, I guess I'm gonna send it over. That was good shout out there for that song and that album. Check it out. Mitchell, what were you gonna say?
Well, first of all, I feel like the running joke of this podcast is I'm gonna let Mitchell say his question, but first, also, literally throughout 10 minutes, you just answered my second question without me having to ask at all, just in two different parts. So,
what was your second question?
Just more about your process and how you get ideas for music and stuff.
Yeah, well, a lot of it's pretty organic.
At least how I wrote it out, it seemed like he answered. But, I mean, I can answer it anyway if you want to tie up any loose ends.
It's fine with me.
I mean, I wrote it out as like, majority of your music is instrumental. And I feel like you and me, I write lyrics mostly, and you typically do instrumental passages. So at the same thing, you're trying to tell a story without words in a more abstract yet just as emotional way. Or I was thinking about this the other day, I mean, when I listen to songs, I mean, what I try to do is I notice when I listen to music, it's a lot of sympathy versus empathy, in the sense of when people are writing about emotional topics or things personal to them, there are a lot of good songs in the sense that, you understand what they're going through and you can sympathize with them, but, either you haven't been through it or you haven't been through it enough to really feel that. And I feel like you and me try to approach the song with trying to fill it as much palpable feeling as it has to like have anyone who listens to it be able to feel what we feel along with us.
Yeah, you come from a more, like word oriented thing.
Yeah, it's like two different ways at the same end point, but like it was just like, since you do it so instrumental, I was just curious, like your specific process, like if you came up with melodies in your head and you just build upon that, and what the software you use, like as you said, fiddling around with sounds and just ideas preconceived,
Yeah,
or if you just like mess around until you find something that strikes a chord and then go from there.
that's
Like,
pretty much what I do. It's what I've always done ever since I picked up guitar, is that I would just start playing and then want something like, oh, okay, let's develop this further. And is kind of how I've always done it. When I set out to try to do something, I'm never happy with it. I just kind of have to let it come out. And I can kind of taint my own process to a degree, because if I'm like, oh, I really like this, I'm going to develop this further. I'm going to make it as good as possible before I release it. I feel like I would think too much about it. So it's like I really have to find a middle ground between organic and me. It's kind of like a battle between my more primal emotive self and then the logical side. Like, hey, you want to make sure this sounds as good as possible before you put it out. Oh, let's fix this little thing here. I don't know. So that's a constant struggle that I got to deal with.
yeah, I've been there like I've been there real time with you as that's happening.
Yeah. But yeah, most of the time it's pretty much organic. That's all. Or yeah, just organic. Same thing with like singing. Is that I'll just kind of sing to my own stuff, or I'll just think of like one line that I come up with when I'm just thinking to myself while I'm at work or something. Then I'll just develop that further. So I don't know. That's been a running challenge, is coming up with a way to integrate stuff that I do write as far as like lyrics and music. But I feel the more just pure music side a lot more strongly than I do, complete songs, in the like kind of pop oriented way.
I mean, I definitely relate because, like, I mean, a lot of your songs, at least first listen, do feel instinctual, almost primal, just like either going off instinct or just trying your hardest to get something, or it just has this kind of brash sound, but also like similar to Corpus Dysmorphia, that entire project is just very just in the moment, like very brooding and demented. Not in a bad
Yeah, that was
way.
it's pretty
It's a very
tortured.
instinctual, primal soundscape, what it's trying to approach, but also like I'm trying not to. I don't want to like use this to reference my music. It's just like we've made music together for years, so like it's easy to talk about it. But we're very methodical because like I'm very organic as well. Like it's hard. It's really hard for me to sit down and just fiddle with things until something works. Like a lot of my songs take like a year to get done, just because like, oh, I got some lyrics. All right, I'll wait for a melody, and then I come with a melody like 6 months later, and then like it only goes faster if I force myself to like push it out with like other artists. But like,
See, we're like the complete opposite in some ways, because like I don't come up with melodies in my head. I let those come to me, but when it comes to words, I'm pretty methodical about that. Especially like when I'm writing more like rap oriented stuff. I'm constantly like, oh, re-editing, editing, how does this flow and stuff. But that makes sense, for me doing it on that aspect of like making a song. The music part comes a lot more naturally.
gotcha. Well, I'm going to take the interview football and pass it back on to Noah.
Need this?
Not you. Why'd you intercept me? Fuck.
Ah, shit. Now you have to ask the question to yourself.
How you feeling right now, Deriq? You feeling good? You need more water. Yeah, maybe. Here we go.
That's a good question. That's quality right there. Let's see. He has everything prepared, and I'm more like off the cuff here. I'm a wild man here.
You can't tame him. I've tried.
Can't tame me. So what do you think? Where do you think your music will go in the future? Where do you see yourself in terms of like how you progress from now?
Never really. I don't have like any like visions of fame or any of that. I just make music to express myself. I mean, I hope one day somebody stumbles upon myself, like even 100 years from now, and it's like, oh wow. Um, there is an artist called Nick Drake. He made like one album that got completely not noticed, no marketing. This was back in the like 70s. And then it wasn't until like the 90s or even the early 2000s that people actually started to notice and some stuff. And so that's how I kind of see my own stuff happening if it does get discovered. Or like Van Gogh, you know, one of my other favorite painter. His stuff was kind of ridiculed at the time, like, oh, this is whatever. But then later on, it became more notable. And so that's kind of how I see my stuff kind of being. My main goal when I do create music is to just do it because I love to do it. But also, I want to be remembered. You know, even if it's for the smallest thing, I want some kind of imprint on this world beyond, you know, just working at some retail shop or something, you know. You know, even if it doesn't get noticed by the vast millions of people, it'll get noticed by some people later on.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this music I really like. Who was this person?
Is there any areas you want to go to in your music that you haven't really gotten to yet?
I would like to do a bit more pop-oriented stuff, you know, more vocal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at that, or even rap, I've talked to Mitch about this. I have a project I'm kind of working on called Goldfish, and it's more of a comedy rap thing. And I've sent him the transcript. I don't want to send it to you because I want you to be completely surprised by it because I think you'll enjoy it more. But it's something I'm like, okay, let's kind of break what I've been doing lately because I feel like I've been kind of in a rut. And then I want to do more acoustic stuff. But as far as like exposure and all that, I don't know. I mean, more fans are always nice, but not because I want money. I want more people to be able to listen to my music and identify with it in the same way that I've listened to, you know, some of my favorite artists and identified and how that has impacted my life and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good answer. Can we do a football analogy too? No. I'm gonna shoot you a baseball here. Okay. You ready, Mitch? You ready?
Baseball?
Oh man, you missed it. Oh, you got it. You got it. Okay, good.
You said shoot baseball. But also, that was my fifth question, so I'll just go back to my third. Just kidding. I'm getting.
No way.
Yes, you keep hitting my questions out of the park. We're going with that baseball analogy.
As long as they get answered, it doesn't matter.
Yes, Eric. I'm loving Eric's answer, so I'm not too mad about it at all. It's just fun. We did not discuss this prior, so we'll probably do that sometime.
For context, this whole day I've been working on literally for the audience a presentation. So like we were like let's do the video, and I was gonna prepare like questions, but I've been working like at school and crap, so I haven't really prepared anything. So that's the context.
Well, that was my last question. You hit a lot of the main points. I mean, I can probably move on back to the end, but I feel like I got most of it out of what I was listening to. I mean, the only thing I guess you really didn't answer is like, I'll ask my next question. This is just like a pre-question, just to add on to the end of Noah's. It's just like, my main question was like, I was going to ask what you want or hope people get out of it, which, you know, feel the same things you felt when listening to other artists, but also like, if you saw making music like you do now as purely a passion, a means to an end in terms of like getting jobs and scoring like movies or video games, or if it's something you'd consider pursuing in its current form full time, in the sense that like your music is so off the wall and like outsider and abstract. I don't see it like being like on the top of the pop charts, but like it's definitely something like a devout cult audience would latch onto. So I'm just curious where you see that going or where you want it to go.
If I did any like, you know, more professional stuff, I would probably see myself doing more like indie movies or like indie game soundtracks, because I feel like there's a certain level of money that gets involved and just oversight that gets involved with major movies that you start losing kind of that human element. And when you do, more indie stuff, it's a lot more natural. It's a lot more unfiltered. And even though it may get critically panned or whatever, there's going to be people who still identify with that. I mean, look at like the Evil Dead movies. It was popular enough to get like a remake, which was the second movie also. It's weird, but then people are like, oh wow. Or like any cult thing. That was a good point. What is it, the one with Tim Curry? I can't believe I'm forgetting this.
I'm talking about Rocky Horror.
Yeah, Rocky Horror, like that type thing. Or The Room. Even though The Room is a terrible like movie in the terms of being effective in telling its story or having a good starring actor, it's still so just indicative of who Tommy Wiseau is as a person and who he's trying to be or who he presents himself as to be. It's silly and it's earnest, even when it's really not. I don't know. And it just says so much about the person. I don't know. I like the auteur aspect of stuff. Like Undertale. Do you play video games, Noah?
I know of Undertale, yes.
Yeah, Undertale. Like it's completely done by one person. And like I've dabbled in making my own like video games and stuff. And Toby Fox, he did all the programming, he did the story writing, he did the music even. And I really like.
Dang. Crazy.
Yeah, I really like that aspect of having complete control, not because you don't want other people involved, but just because you want to be able to express yourself in the full amount. And when other people get in there, it adds a different context to everything. Now, I like working with other people, like like with Mitch and stuff, and the rest of the people that were in the Frank Sonatas. It's not as personal to me. Like, hey, yeah, I'll write like a cool bass line for somebody else. I'm down to do that or just jam, but it's going to be a different kind of beast than if I'm just doing stuff for myself.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I do a lot of my own album artwork too. So
ties back to being an amazing artist and great at everything. So you are an auteur.
I consider myself a very shitty Renaissance man.
Well, I greatly admire that take on it because that's exactly how I approach things. I want complete control to express myself, and just I'm stubborn as well, and like to have hands on in every little facet of things. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you're trying to present, a very specific thing, and other people are trying to help, it just doesn't always work out because you feel like you're contradicting yourself and or compromising the actual vision that you have. Now, if it's a collaborative thing, like if me and you worked, like on Headspace, like that was completely organic still, but we worked on that together because we had shared experiences and it made those separate ideas better by connecting the two, I feel like. So
yeah, that was very organic. They literally just started with me with like just being depressed on your floor about life in general, and just like you played a beat and I said some lines and we went from there. Like it took a year to get done almost, but like it was a very organic process.
So did your mom, but it's okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I just gotta undercut the sentimentality. Let's get it back to like a good middle ground.
Cutting my obvious admiration for you throughout this entire thing. But whatever. So that was the ending. What?
Wait, I was about to say, you didn't ask that really good question I saw on here. You didn't ask the question where you were going to ask him about the song you liked. Because that's a really good question, and I really want to know.
Dude, I have to set that up.
Or is that what you were going to do? Okay,
Yeah.
Set it up.
I was just asking like any remaining like strand I had from your question and then move on to that one. But, yes, I was about to.
Okay.
Thank you. Doing. Oh, whatever. That's 2 for you. And 2 for Deriq. Deriq.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
dodging them.
Oh,
Dodge 3.
shit.
Okay.
It's because I want to look at them on my wall. Thank you.
Aww.
I'm gonna use a magic eraser on it later.
My heart is winning, and so is something else, but that's neither here. So, yes, this is the question Noah's excited about, apparently, which is nice.
This is my favorite question.
Okay, so as I said, met Deriq 2.5 years ago, house party, became slow friends, and that was like I was just, short answer, I had come to Springfield for college. Freshman year is when I met Noah, but then I left for a year because of a lot of personal things and just not really feeling ready to leave the nest, or like just I wasn't fully prepared to strike out on my own. Then I met Deriq visiting town again, and then I don't know if we talked much before I moved back. I can't remember that far back, I guess.
I can't either.
But we started talking again, and pretty regularly once band practice got up, and once we just started doing our own thing. But I remember I don't remember when he put it out, but like he sent me like some of his first electronic albums, or just the beginnings of Qired, or just either archival recordings he had, or just starting to release it. But I was sitting in like Missouri State University, we all went to, as I've said before in the previous podcast. I remember vividly sitting in the cafeteria and scrolling through, listening to all the tracks, and they're obviously good, but like it was just enjoyment in the moment. And then Deriq knows this obviously, but he has a song called "Only in Time."
Damn it.
It's purely instrumental. I mean, I don't know. Was it on an album before Refracted?
Before Refracted, it was on a collection called Several Years Later Inside My Head that was on Bandcamp for a little bit.
Yes.
I kind of abandoned that, but so it was one of my earliest things that I like did too.
I think that's what I was listening to. I mean, were those archival songs from?
Yeah, a lot of them I more recently re-released, but I wanted to something that's kind of new in today's day and age is that you can go back and re-edit stuff, and you have I have full control of what I put out. So if I'm not like happy with it, or I'm like, oh, I've improved on it in some way, I can re-put it out. Like one I put out more recently called The Captive. It was originally called The Captivator. That was off like my first ever release called More Than All the Universes. And that's something that's very dear to me because it's one of the first things I made, but it also has a lot of emotional connotation I won't go into right now. But I don't know. It just depends on what platform it is. Like, oh, hey, I can actually put out my stuff to a wider audience. I'm going to put on that because like Spotify is more open than like Bandcamp is. It's a lot more accessible. You can find stuff a bit more organically there. Bandcamp, you kind of have to actively search out stuff more. So,
but as I was saying, not the cafeteria, like the students that are listening to, I believe it was that several years ago project. Mm-hmm. Only in Time really hit me. I don't know, like so it moved me, and just like it was really well made, and just it felt cinematic, inspiring, and it was on the album. It's now on his like What I See, just aesthetically, it's his debut album.
Refracted. Yeah.
Spotify, which you can check out. But I've always loved that song. We've talked about like putting lyrics to it for the Frank Sonatas. I mean, I told you Gilbert and I like tried to write to it like a few months ago, just kind of like surprise you in the sense of like a remix, I guess.
Yeah.
We didn't get too far, but we tried. Like, no matter what you make, like that'll always be my favorite song, just because I don't know, because we're basically best friends, and we also it's just very inspiring. But the question itself was of course that's my favorite track, and I know that album to album, song to song, you have different connections, different connotations, different preferences, and you're always remixing songs and remastering them. I was just curious if you ever have a favorite track or favorite project that you've done, or if the making of one song or one album has had a more profound effect on you overall than others.
So Refracted was a lot. The title holds a lot of different things because there's a lot of different disparate pieces of music that I was just kind of working on just to work on them. But I chose the title Refracted because I wanted to represent of, even though, and I think it's kind of representative of a lot of my music, is that my stuff can be seen in different ways. And, even with like a track list or a playlist, depending upon the order that you listen to songs in, it's going to give different context to the whole, be it your listening session or whatever. And with Refracted, like I've even thought about doing my own playlists, especially on like Spotify, just to give new context to certain songs. And maybe people will be like, oh, okay, maybe this is what he was trying to say with this, or what if this also represents this, or even just, them finding their own context with it. But I talked about this track earlier called Courage, where it was just that piano line repeating, but it gets faster. The BPM gets continuously faster. And that's one of my favorite pieces of music that I've created because, number one, it's just super simple. There's not a whole lot of fluff there, but also you start off with a slow like piano melody, and just that building, you get the ball rolling. I feel like it's very representative of just like my own process about so many things, or even just life itself. Like it starts off slow, you're learning new things. Wow, okay, and then it gets faster and faster. But that song to me represents courage within myself. Like it takes a while to get to. You're going to get to a good point where it's just going. Another
Is that on?
that's on Speculum.
Okay.
Another one of my favorite pieces is one of my more recent ones, which is called. Hold on.
I'm surprised you did, since you listen to your music all day, every day.
Fuck off. It's called Beautiful Forms, and that one it was based a little bit on an earlier piece that I did called The Dent in Me. But that's another thing, is that I'll take pieces of music that I've worked on ages ago and I'll rework on them, and then I'll expand them. And so they may still hold a little bit of that feeling that I did whenever I originally created them. But they've taken on, more context. But that song called Beautiful Forms, it's almost the opposite of Only in Time, because Only in Time starts off kind of listless and, almost kind of more happy-go-lucky sounding. And then, it goes into that transition period where it starts to get darker. And then it just ends on that noise. And that's kind of how I felt my life at that time was. That it started off, with like really good moments and then just got worse. But Beautiful Forms is my personal favorite, like overall, aside from Courage, because it starts off kind of funky, but it arrives in a more contemplative, kind of solemn area, and that's kind of where I'm at now. So my favorite stuff is generally everything that I feel like represents me at a certain time. So right now, Beautiful Forms is me coming out of yeah, all right, let's not take this too seriously, and then becoming more aware of the context surrounding my own life and experiencing all these different things and just being more thoughtful of everything. That's one of my favorites. But if we're talking about just like some fun time music, Bear Jam, which is just a rando song. Like I have a playlist called The Randos. My mom loves that one too, but it's just, if we're talking about just me, like unfiltered, just goofiness and silliness, I love Bear Jam. It's just self-indulgence and I like it. So.
The cover art is a cartoon bear he always drew at the job he worked
I love bears.
Every week at Missouri State. So I love the art for that. I have to re-listen to Bear Jam just to remember what it is. It's heard in a while, but also the transition of Beautiful Forms, or at least in its demo form, The Dent in Me, is fucking flawless. So please, everybody check it out.
Don't forget, I also have Stir Crazy out
Sorry, Stir Crazy and The Captive. He's
and The Beautiful Forms.
yeah, he released nothing for so long except our collab, and now he's released 3 very, very close to each other.
And I'm working on other stuff. I'm trying not to be so, procrastinating. I don't know the fucking word for that.
I'm glad your musical constipation is ended.
Well, now it's more of like a slow drip, so I'm still working out the kinks in my musical digestive tract.
Musical rectum. We're just
Oh man, that should be the name of your next album, Musical Rectum.
Okay, so I have an idea of what the next title will be, but I won't.
You won't divulge the details right now, but I guarantee you it won't be as good as Musical Rectum. I'm just gonna say that right now. So,
Well, I've actually wanted to start a punk band for a really long time, like a pure punk band, but I can never. Nobody listens to that. Everybody here in fucking Springfield wants to play like Christian metal or like some kind of like hardcore screamo stuff.
Let's listen to Korn, man.
It's like, can we just not like go back to a guitar, a bass, some drums, and I'm just complaining about my life? I don't know.
That's
It's just simpler.
man. Hell yeah, punk.
ask you to join a Christian metal band.
Nobody has.
I'm saying
Asked me.
not what I asked you to do. There's more than just that in Springfield.
Okay, do I want to play country rock? Well, okay, that might actually be
I'm
fun.
talking
But
about our band.
our band was the band. I don't really have a genre for it.
It was everything.
You know what? I would definitely pay to see you get into country rock, man. I would like
country.
that.
I like blues.
I like country too. I think it's underappreciated. I think that people need to bring it back to its former glory. So yeah, hell yeah. I think seeing someone with your amount of creativity and shit like that go into country,
I like
that'd be awesome.
Coulter Wall is somebody I've been listening to lately. And then of course Chris Stapleton.
Have you listened to Orville Peck?
No.
Orville Peck. Check him out. He does some like music that is sort of reminiscent of old Western music. So like back whenever it was called country and Western, more like that. And then there's also a artist. I'll have to send you the guy's name from actually around here in the Ozarks. Who's sort of blowing up right now. Nick, I forgot his last name, but he's doing really well in terms of country, but like I dig that stuff. Chris Stapleton as well. Yeah. But definitely check out Orville Peck. I think you'd probably like him.
Was that Nick?
Conway Twitty, yeah. No, man, he was better. He was actually pretty good.
Yeah. And then of course Johnny Cash and shit.
Wait.
Well, I want to ask you. I need to get it in there.
So she said.
Hey, get it in there, boy. Get it in there.
All right.
Sorry, I was pegging you for somebody who would like that.
Yeah, just peg me. Just do it. Okay. I've seen Gilbert sent me a country artist in the Ozarks, and he covered the Grand Tour by George something. I was wondering if that was the same guy.
Oh, I thought you were okay. What do you look like?
He just sent me a video. I think he was like in the Missouri area. I might be mistaken. It's just like it was this. I think black, late 20s, early 30s guy.
That's not him. The dude I'm talking about has a. I'll have to check him out, but dude I'm talking about has a gnarly haircut. You know what? Let me find him. Because he deserves respect put on his name.
Rest in peace for the audio listeners who can't divulge in such a.
Yeah, your audio is being weird, by the way.
All right, just attack me right away.
Yeah, I'm gonna attack. Nick Shoulders is his name, and the first song I ever heard from him is called "Rather Low." It's really good. Definitely check it out.
Nick Shoulders, like you shoulders some weight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. like you would spell the name, like you spell the word shoulders. Yeah, really good guy. He's got this like gnarly looking mullet. He's got shaved on the sides. It looks like a punk mullet. It's cool. It's got shaved on the sides, and it's like a mullet. But yeah, now check him out and check out Orville Peck. So
Oh, hey, he's on here. Okay.
Noah, I'm gonna ping.
you found him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see him. Whose question is next?
I
I followed both.
was gonna ping the question to Noah's Pong. Noah's next.
Oh, you're pinging my pong?
Yeah.
Oh shit, he's pinging my pong. Well, I don't know if I have any like specific questions, but more like an observance. In terms of construction and composition of your albums, it seems like you like, at least this is an observance from me. It seems like you really value challenging your listener. Am I right about that?
How so?
More like whenever I listened to you, it was very different from a lot of things I've heard, and I kind of got from what you like put out there, that you kind of like you don't seem like to really like go with what people conventionally listen to. You just kind of put it out there and like want someone to go on, like basically be on this sort of ride with you. Is that kind of how you view it?
Yeah. I mean, I noticed a lot of my stuff, now they get me thinking, it starts off a lot slower.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of all over the place. I don't really structure my albums in terms of like, oh, I want a loud song here, I want a softer song there. I just kind of go with what feels right.
Yeah.
And what I feel like should naturally follow. And sometimes I want to carry the mood. Sometimes I want to, hey, you know what? Hey, we're going to cut it here. Stop. We're going to slow the tempo here and whatever. So I guess, I don't know. That's just something that kind of organically arises. I don't know. I don't have any answer to that.
It feels like whenever when I've listened to different things from you, it just feels like, hey, I'm gonna take you on this ride. You're gonna be on it no matter what. It's like it's not gonna ease you into it. It's just gonna happen. And the one I'm most familiar with, the one that has Corpus Dysmorphia, that album, it feels like I don't know. Like I also kind of wanted to segue this into like another question. On that album in particular, did you get any like sort of, this is specific, what was which album was that? It reminded me again.
The Weathered Veneer.
Weathered Veneer. Okay, so like I got a lot of industrial, and I know that's like one of your influences. Did you get any like influence from what's it called, Yeezy?
Oh, me and Mitchell were talking about this earlier. Yeezus is one of my favorite albums.
Is it really? I can tell, because
yeah.
I can really tell when I listen to the album. I get Yeezus, really.
Well, I thank you. I mean, hey, you sound like David. You sing like David Bowie. Oh, this sounds like. I mean, these are my favorite artists. So like, I think a lot of people would be like, oh man, I don't want to sound just like people I grew up listening to. But I think it's a good thing to kind of wear your influences and see how did he intake this kind of info, and how did he reintegrate that into his own, psyche, and how is this put out now? So, I mean, of course it's going to sound like, oh, awesome. All right, cool. But not, like I said, that was just, so a lot of the stuff, especially on Spotify or, like Apple Music or whatever, that I put out, I take a long time considering what goes on an album, because sometimes there's stuff where I'm like, well, maybe this shouldn't be on here. And that's one of my problems about putting out stuff, because then I'm always like, oh, you know what? No, let's take that out. Let's put this back on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was I had an original project that was on Bandcamp and SoundCloud for a time, called Ideas, but the I and D in Ideas was in parentheses. It was more of just like raw kind of takes on my own primal, more negative aspects. And so the Weathered Veneer has taken some of those songs and some newer ones and packaged them together. And that's why I chose the title Weathered Veneer. Is that like, even though it looks like everything's good on the outside, you know, there's cuts and scrapes in there that you may not be able to see. I don't know. You can see some of the stuff underneath, but overall there's still some, you know, shine to it. That's kind of why I
Yeah.
chose it. Even though it's a very negative sounding album, there's a reason that on the very last song called Frustration Behind a Facade, there is another song that I don't have titled that comes in. And it's to show that, oh, okay, there's some hints at some more positive aspects. And I still haven't put that song out because I don't really want to. I kind of like it's a full song that I have, but I like that just aspect of it tail ending this very negative album and then just getting hints of, okay, maybe there's some, you know, kind of light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
like in terms of, oh, I'm going to take them on a ride, especially with that is a very self-loathing and self, you know, just torturing, you know, project. But at the end, you know, you can still learn from knocking yourself down a couple of pegs. So
it feels very much like, yeah, and that's what I especially listening to the album. I got the sense of like, oh, you're, you know, very forcefully like thrown into this, but in like in a good way, like, but also like I got a lot of like, you definitely mix and like, synthesize all your influences in a very, just like seamless way. I really got like 8-bit Yeezus for a lot of it. This is not kidding. Like 8-bit Yeezus and like some Bowie thrown in there, some like Bowie from Low, or like you know, stuff like that.
That was another thing me and Mitch were talking about. Low is one of my favorite David Bowie albums.
I can tell. Do you really see Brian? Do you see Brian? What's his name? Brian. Eno. Do you see Brian Eno as like somewhat of an influence as well? Because I can see a little bit of that.
Because Brian Eno was like working through, you know, like the 60s and stuff, just doing like his more interest, you know, like instrumental. He helped with like Pet Sounds and stuff, I think a little bit too.
Oh wow.
And he's potential influence because he's influenced a lot of the artists that have influenced me. And like, that's the same thing. Like I didn't come to really like Bowie until I found 9 Inch Nails, because 9 Inch Nails was influenced by Bowie. And I don't know, he's kind of always there, but it's not somebody I have ever cited specifically. And there's a lot of like 9 Inch Nails is probably my biggest in terms of pretty blatant similarities.
I can see that too. Yeah. I can really definitely see that. And I can see a lot of, it's just like when I listen to you, I can hear a lot of your influences all at the same time. Like I can hear grunginess, I can hear industrial sounding stuff. Like it's really interesting how it all mixes together.
Yeah. And then like the video game aspect.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, a lot of them like really would fit well in a game, really. So if you ever made a game, hey, I want to see that. I definitely do.
I have because I play like D&D and stuff and some world building for that. And I've always kind of had an idea or a couple of ideas for games. Like it would be more RPG focused because I like Final Fantasy and all that. But I have that or another program called RPG-CE. I don't know. It's a really weird acronym. But I would probably do more of a story focused thing and kind of have like, I don't know, think like an interactive movie with my own music as part of the story is probably what I would do. And it's something that I've really been thinking about is working on a more like an interactive album experience. Like maybe there's branching paths in the stories, and depending upon where you go, you hear different songs. People to be like, oh, let's go back and what is this path? Oh, this is a piece of music I've never heard, or this is a weird variation on this other theme of this character. And I love that aspect of stuff. So it's something I've really been rolling around in my head.
Oh wow, that sounds really interesting. Shit. Yeah, no, I'd love to see that. Shit. What were you, Mitch, you have any questions?
I had one last question, and to continue the trend, Noah somehow asked a very similar question to me, even though I didn't do this beforehand. But it's not. I'll ask it anyway, just because we're here and we're loving life. But the last question I had was just, again, touching on, to me, your greatest inspirations being Bowie and Nine Inch Nails and Kanye West, and then scores from Zelda and Final Fantasy. And I mean, I find you and Noah really similar just because you're both very well-rounded culturally. Like, you have very eclectic taste. You pull from everywhere, not just like a specific lane sometimes in like how I do. So I mean, I can tell that they all synthesize. I was just curious if any artists specifically affect a certain part of the music. Who, like, you wear your influence on your sleeve, so like, who affects the melody? Like, who inspires you in terms of melody, lyrics, structure, conceptualizing?
So lyrics, it's definitely rap. I would say Eminem is probably the biggest influence on my lyrics.
Oh, that came out of nowhere. Dang.
Well, you haven't seen a lot of my rap stuff that I've actually
Yeah,
written and stuff.
I haven't. I'll have to check
And
it
I
out.
kind of want that to be a surprise for you because I'm working on that Goldfish project. But in terms of lyrics, it's Eminem. Melody is very big in the Nobuo Uematsu, who did the Final Fantasy soundtracks, and Koji Kondo, who does a lot of the Legend of Zelda stuff.
Oh hell yeah, yeah.
Ocarina of Time is my favorite game of all time, and the melodies in that game are so simple, but they mean a lot to me. That game is very, very important to me. And so in terms of musically, like that's why, in that game you have temples or whatever that have a certain melody associated with them or melodies associated with certain characters. I love leitmotif. I feel like it's such an easy and simple, effective way to get to know what a character is like without even saying anything or doing anything. You just see them going about their daily business, and then you have this own piece of music that encapsulates so much that you can't say in just dialogue or words. And that is a really big influence on like my melodies. So every melody that I have in one of my things represents a different thought pattern or moment from my life. And then in terms of like, we'll say the beat, and this is something I've noticed more recently. When it comes to the beat, I really like hard driving beats, really repetitive beats, because it kind of it keeps a rhythm going in my mind and helps me organize all of these disparate emotions. And that's kind of what like beats do, anyways, is that it keeps things on track. And I really just like that aspect of it. And so a lot of my songs, I don't really change the beat a whole lot. And this is like I feel like this is just pretty basic knowledge, but that's how important it is to me. And then in terms of like overall production, that's that kind of 3D headspace that I was talking about earlier. I try to visualize all of that within the context of, like a 3D environment. Trying to think of other song aspects that I could expound upon. I don't know. What do you think of?
I mean, in terms of like, also curious of who influences like how you structure a song.
Oh, structure-wise?
Or like conceptual-wise.
Conceptual-wise, I would say, I don't know. I don't really have an idea of who influences how I conceive, album track lists or, kind of themes or whatever. That just comes pretty naturally for me. song structure wise, it depends on what I feel like it kind of aligns with more. There's some stuff where it's a lot more pop oriented. I feel like the bulk of my structures mainly comes from game music. And my music, I feel, can be a bit repetitive at times. That's because it's almost like it's supposed to be a soundtrack to a certain moment, and you kind of want it going, in the background. It's unobtrusive, but once you notice something in it, oh, hey, this sticks, That's what that video game aspect really ties into.
I can easily see that in a lot of your work.
So you're saying that, again, context matters, and it's more for moments than like enjoyment, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's enjoyment in every, part of life, even the sad parts. I mean, even just being alive, I think, is good. Like even the bad stuff. You don't want good things happening to you the whole time that you're alive, because then it's just gonna be fucking boring. You want other moments to contrast, to add context to other moments. So.
Yeah. I'm out of questions unless Noah, I can serve my tennis ball into his mouth. Ask me the question.
Maybe I have one more question. Do you see yourself as do you see
a Messiah, the prophet?
Do you see yourself as Jesus Christ? That's what. No.
I see myself as the Buddha.
Good answer. No, I was going to say, do you separate your persona in your art from who you are as yourself? Is it more of a exaggerated form of yourself, or do you see you and you and your name, Qired, like you as an artist, as more the same?
So when in terms of Qired, definitely pretty much. I don't know, because it depends on what type of music I'm playing. If I'm doing more Qired oriented stuff, that's going to have a different feel than me just like playing my guitar or whatever, or even playing electric guitar. So like, whenever I play bass, I'm a lot more, hey, let's go, let's groove. I just enjoy this. I just enjoy the act of doing this. In terms of Qired, that's more of like expressing myself and just trying to capture, the disparate, thoughts and emotions that I feel. When in terms of me playing acoustic guitar, that's me trying to almost kind of do the same thing as Qired, is capture the moment. But I also want to make something beautiful when it comes to that. If I'm playing drums, I just kind of want to, hey, let's hammer this out. It's kind of like a form of self-therapy. When I rap, that's more of like okay, let's get technical of this while I'm still kind of saying stuff.
Wow. So yeah, that was a really good answer. So like, you kind of view things differently based on like what you're doing, essentially, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and this may seem wholly unrelated, but I have a lot of characters that I've made for like, not necessarily just D&D, but other, like games or whatever. And a lot of those are kind of like distilled aspects of myself. And so, I don't know, it's hard to capture myself in totality, because I feel like in everything we do, we're putting a different part of ourselves into it. And that's what those characters kind of represent. So like, I introduced myself as Gaudy Graves earlier. That's just going to be, a little bit of arrogance, a little bit of like, technical skill when it comes to rapping and stuff. And that's what that next project that I'm kind of working on, Goldfish, is about, is kind of also getting into that more, part of myself where it's like, oh, I'm kind of haughty, or kind of like, uppity. And I think better, it's like an overconfidence thing. I have multiple characters playing through that, because I have a silliness. I have kind of me as the straight man. And then Gotti Graves is just this overconfident braggadocio kind of dipshit. And then a character named Poe Judith Quit You is just completely off the rockers and just no filter, not necessarily saying anything bad, just it doesn't make any sense. That's what, yeah.
Have you watched very much Filthy Frank?
Not really.
It kind of reminds me of Filthy Frank in a way, honestly, with all the different characters.
Yeah, I have a shit ton of characters that I've made just because I like symbolism a lot, and so I'll associate. I actually have different playlists of just on my own Spotify account of music that each of my personas or whatever would listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Wow.
one, and they're not all like male either. There's different races, different genders, different orientations, because like I feel like people are a lot more complex than what their baseline represents. I like exploring different mental spaces too.
Wow, that's really interesting. So like you don't really see Qired as something like different. You just see like each project and different things you do as almost like an extension of a different personality, essentially.
Not person. I feel like personality is not too strong of a word.
Okay.
It's too simple of a word, I guess. There's a lot more content because like we all present ourselves as different people to different people.
Yeah.
And I feel like with each of my projects, it's a different part of like Refracted is a lot more, it sounds more club music and it's a lot more technical and cold. Whereas, the Weather Veneer is just like raw, just like heated, guttural emotions. And then Speculum is going to be, it's a lot more stuff at peace and it's a lot more pretty sounding things, maybe a little bit more bittersweet. And so it's almost like I'm going through my own kind of different aspects of myself into different albums. And so I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into I think
Good.
about my stuff way too much.
Great answers, though. Honestly, that I did not. I mean, to be honest, I did not expect that much complexity from all that. So that's
Or like my song
a good
Bear
answer.
Jam, like I said, it's just self-indulgence. That's just me playing around. And I'm like, well, this sounds fun. Fuck it, we'll put it out. Or have one called The Ultimate. That's just going to be like, you know what? That's just me. When I'm ready, I'm going. That's that pure testosterone kind of build up. Where Beautiful Forms is me really thinking deeply about things, and going through different things. The same thing was like Only in Time. I don't know. Psychedelics have done a lot.
I see the questions, but I actually thought of one more. If you're down.
What? I didn't hear you or understand you.
I said I was out of questions, but I thought of one more. If you're down to answer it.
Absolutely not. I'm just kidding.
All right, cut it right there.
That's all, folks.
Can I ask you though?
Yes, Mitchell, ask me.
This is the interview, so I'm deciding. But I'm being close. We made music together a lot. So we've discussed the process, we've discussed our end results, we've discussed creating, we've discussed literally everything it comes to when it comes to songwriting. And I brought this up to you, but I want to ask you like a concise answer for me, Noah, and like people watching. When it comes to me, I'm very focused on how I write my lyrics, and I'm very particular about how good the lyrics are. And I find myself akin to specific ways like Self-Confession, like Pinkerton by Weezer, which we both love, or Motion City Soundtrack, or Modern Baseball, where it's methodical in the way you present it, but also it's very open and, in a sense, unfiltered, and just like you're throwing up words onto a song in some ways. And
yeah,
I'm curious how you see yourself filtering your music, because I've had a lot of ideas, and stuff I want to write about, but I think a lot of people will say the most important thing is the music and just the fact of self-expression, but also there are certain things I find myself either not wanting to open up about, or in the case of other people, like, for example, if it's similar to a relationship, I don't want to invade the privacy of someone else for my own self-satisfaction or specific catharsis. So, like, I don't know, how do you approach how much like, as you said, a lot of it is just, it's all tied to who you are, but also how you want to present yourself in a specific mindset or way. So, like, how do you approach how much you filter out, or is it just whatever goes? What's most important is what it is to you.
So in terms of like my own filter, a lot of it is stream of consciousness. And my mind's always jumping from one thing to another. So that's why my music also kind of sounds disjointed to a degree. To me, okay, that makes sense. But like, it's not going to make sense to other people who aren't like, in my mind frame. But in terms of how I present myself, as an artist, I try to express the essence of who I am in a lot of ways, without adding all of the unnecessary details that come with life. Because there's a lot of things you could say that can be misconstrued as taken the wrong way because of the words you've used or how you place them. And I think that's why I focus on a lot of instrumental music, is that somebody can get so technical and just so bogged down with, oh, what does this mean? What does that mean when it comes to words? Or did he really mean to say this way? Or even if you say something that could come across super bad, like, not everybody's going to glean the context of why those things are being said. But I think everybody has an inherent sense of like what music makes them feel like. And I feel like that's not getting in the way of what people have their own preferences. I mean, everybody's going to have like, oh, I don't really like metal music. I don't really care for this song. But even if they do end up listening to that, they may still get the sense of, wow, this person's like full of anxiety or something. And, maybe they don't want to, experience that, but they'll still get the sense of what you are presenting. And a lot of the times, stuff that I would present, I don't, recognize until somebody else is like, oh, hey, I noticed this in your music. And I'm like, wow, okay. So like I learn from my own stuff and what other people, kind of see in my music. So like, even though I'm presenting my current truth, the content of what that truth tells me at the time could be different, years down the line. What somebody else, has an outsider perspective of what that truth looks like to them, because then it could reveal even more truths. So it's like a running commentary on everything about myself when it comes to my music. Even just, having this interview, I am learning things from y'all that I didn't see, in my own stuff. But even just trying to answer questions, I'm coming up with, oh, wow, okay, I'm seeing these patterns in my own stuff. I'm seeing in the new stuff and the patterns that you guys are picking up on that I didn't necessarily pick up on at the time. So it's just kind of like a running learning process. Nothing ever has like a definitive answer.
But on the same note, when it comes to like when you're not necessarily writing about yourself or maybe something that happened to you, but like when you're specifically talking about another person, for example, like you mentioned writing about issues you had with your father early on, or I know a few of your projects have centered on like the ramifications of a breakup, similar to
Yeah.
music I've written about. So like when it comes to writing about an event or another person, like how careful are you with filtering how much you let on, or like do you believe that
I mean, there's always going to be an error.
You want, like, it's about the music more than anything?
When it comes to that, I feel like even if you say something about somebody else, that's like that, that's the free speech thing. Even if you say something about somebody else, that is the truth that you're presenting. Other people are free to be like, that's not how I see it, or that's not how it was. Truth, I don't know. I believe more in shared truth because everybody has their own perspective on stuff. Once people see something, and a lot of people see, that's getting into a really big philosophical discussion. We're supposed to be talking about music, but when it comes to other people, I say as much that is needed to understand where I'm coming from without downplaying anybody else or shitting on them. I'm trying to come at it from my perspective of events. I don't want to definitively say anything that I think, oh, this is what they experienced, because I can't fully say. Or even an event. I've tried to write stuff, more globally focused, not focused on me. And that stuff I'm more hesitant to put out because in the wider space, there are so many different voices that I don't want to not say something that could, I don't want to put out something that can be misconstrued, or you may not have the, experience to talk about this subject or whatever, which that's just, kind of a sign of our times today. I prefer, being able to hear everybody's opinion and stuff. I don't know. This is making me sound like some alt-right type of dude, but that's not what it is at all. It's just, like I said, if there's one key word about everything I say, it's about context, and there's no guide on how to parse it out. You just kind of have to figure it out yourself. So.
All right.
And I would say one takeaway you should take away from that is that Deriq is a Nazi, confirmed.
What a coincidence.
Mitchell's one too.
Oh, crap. Mitchell, you didn't tell me this.
He refuses to shave his head, though, so that's why he shaves his face all the time.
Ah, okay. So he's trying to do it reverse. I see.
This is a Nazi, which is just, being a regular human being. But, no.
What was I going to say? I don't have any other questions, really.
Well, I think it's safe to say, at least from Deriq's end, this was a very satisfying interview, and we appreciate having you on. I find myself admiring you even more somehow after this whole thing. You're
thanks.
Quite the creator.
Yeah, you're a really intelligent dude. I already knew that, but wow, you got some great explanations for things, very eloquent in how you put things.
Yeah, I thought you were stupid.
Oh, thanks, because I don't feel that way at all.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm just
you're...
word salad.
No,
2.5 years you were stupid, but you proved me wrong. So
I'm just kidding.
Maybe you should take this moment to give a shout out to your work for anybody who's reached the end here.
Okay, so my Pornhub account is called Big Dick Biggie. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah.
I'm on OnlyFans. Anyway,
you're one of the only ones, dude.
Yeah, feet pics.
Fucking yeah, no. Look up Qired, Qired. My stuff's on the most major music platforms. I have an Instagram too. It's Qired94, all lowercase. Facebook page that I have neglected to really do anything with.
Even the numbers?
What?
The numbers are lowercase too?
Yes, they're Roman numerals. In fact, no, I'm just kidding. You'll find it. Is there anything else I want to plug? I don't think so.
Plug
it from Mitchell.
Plug
What's
your new song, Sarah?
I have The Captive and Beautiful Forms. And what was the other one? Stir Crazy. Don't even try to spell that. Just find Qired. Stir Crazy. STRCRA7_Y.
And where can I where can that be found?
Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, I think Napster.
Oh shit.
TikTok.
Pirated off the internet.
TikTok.
If you somehow email me, I'll probably give you a couple of copies.
TikTok.
None of it. I don't know. You don't have to buy any of my stuff, really. I'm on Bandcamp too. If anybody wants to check out, there's probably some stuff or some earlier versions of stuff that are on Bandcamp and in different orders. So if you kind of dug the more different contexts for my songs and song orders and stuff, hey, there's some stuff on there that may not even be released on the other stuff, and in different forms and a lot more rustic and art too, I guess. I really like a lot of the covers that I need to put out again because those covers are good.
Yeah, the more than all the
to toot my own horn.
Really good. Specifically.
Thanks for reminding me of that. I'm gonna cry now. I'm just kidding. Yeah, no. See, a lot of those, I have songs that are out now on the major, like music platforms. But that's a good. Go back, go to the Bandcamp and check out some of the earlier stuff. If you checked out the Spotify stuff already, you'll get a different perspective with certain songs and all that context. Maybe that should just be the title of my next album, Context.
Yeah, you love playing with context.
Yeah. Oh, Beautiful Forms can be looped, by the way.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I just figured I'd throw that in there. I was just thinking about that.
Thanks. I'm going to get right on that.
He's going to be looping it while he goes to sleep. So he can think about you.
Like Kid Cudi. All right. Well.
Somebody's be like, why is he just staring at the camera for 10 seconds? I was going to see if you guys picked up, oh shit, did he freeze?
You tried that on me earlier. I'm done playing your games.
Stop.
Well, Deriq, Qired, whatever you want me to call you.
Daddy.
You get it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry for all the gay jokes. So we all three specifically do that a lot with each other. So hopefully that's shown through because it's a special place in my heart and somewhere else that's warm. But
we're not going. Let's not circle back around to warm penis.
Dude, I wasn't going to say it. You said it. You said it, not me.
Give me some of that warm dick, please.
Okay, you're getting really dirty.
I just want to make you uncomfortable. That's it.
But thank you for joining us for, I think, your first interview, but our first interview as a podcast. We appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for giving me an extra platform.
Of course.
And technically, Noah joined us because me and you were already in a call.
Yeah, we were hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all been hanging out for hours now. Shit.
That's how we do. Well, here's my goal to give Deriq a bigger platform in any way. So hopefully.
Hell yeah.
It's true. So thanks everybody for watching, whether you skipped around or followed through to the end, which I don't know. Why did you do that?
Hey, if nobody listens to my stuff, at least this will be on YouTube, which will last a while.
And then nobody will watch this. So it's just another stake in the fire.
Have you put links out on Instagram?
Yeah. Every time.
I don't get on Instagram. See, that's one of my problems is I don't market my shit at all.
Yeah, that's my job. Because you refuse to do it.
A job you've been failing at. No,
me and Mitchell have this thing where he puts it out the day he releases it, and then I am so busy a lot of times, and I do it the day after. But I feel like there's a beauty to it. I feel like he puts it on his story. He's like, "Hey, we just released a new video." I don't say anything about it, and I wait the next day. And it's just like, oh well, we have a steady stream of people viewing it. It's not all just one day.
Well, it's just because
kind of like a two-tiered approach.
Yeah, it's a two-tiered approach.
I just spend too much time on marking all the timestamps and making the thumbnails and putting it out there. That's I need to get rid of it. It just needs to go out of my head into yours.
One more plug. Sometime within the next year, I will be starting my own podcast called Duly Noted.
Is this for real or is this true?
I want to. True? It's just I don't know what the fuck I'm going to talk about. So.
Oh. So are you just gonna sit there and then wait for someone to have someone talk at you, and then at the end you're like, duly noted. And then
I don't know. I just like the name because it fits. I don't know. I would probably just talk about whatever the fuck I feel like it. So.
You and your brother.
Oh yeah. Well,
He doesn't want to do it now, so I think I'm just gonna do it solo. I don't even know if, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just start like reading rando shit. Like today, make a list of all of the weird thoughts that I had. I don't know.
I'd listen to that. You've got some pretty cool, weird thoughts.
Experimental podcast.
Like today, I have 3 birds that come and eat at my bird feeder that I have on my porch now. And I named them Boss Briggs, Sprig, and Frigga. There you go. Duly noted.
Duly noted.
Podcast 10 seconds long.
No, it'd probably be like a collection of things. I don't know. Maybe it'd be like a stream of consciousness.
That'd be cool.
I don't know. I also thought about doing some like video game streaming and shit.
Anything to get your name out there. You deserve it.
Anything to get extra money.
Well, sure.
Just kidding.
Dampen my sentimentality. I get it. But, Deriq, thank you again. And thank you, Noah, for being my trusty sidekick and taking a lot of the lead on this one and all my questions. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Mitch. Why else would I be here?
I'm going to let you finish, but I'm
Are you trying to?
I'm Taylor Swift.
You're Taylor Swift. I'm Kanye.
You are not as pretty as Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Nailed it.
Next go around, we have. I think you need to be the question asker, and I add on things to it.
We'll figure it out, but I'm just being passive. But thank you guys for watching. This has been the M&N Show. We'll be back next week with more album reviews in the future, and Deriq will be a guest on some of those discussions. So watch out for him and check him out everywhere you can. Thank you, and duly noted.